The title of today's sermon is called The Power of Godliness. When you think about power, what comes into your mind? Do you think of power of your muscles? A power of money? Or a power of politicians? Or military powers? What comes into your mind? And do you seek any power in your life? In the Bible, it speaks of such a power not from this world. And it does speak of power that comes from God. And those who are in Christ are empowered by this heavenly power. And today's passage talks about this power, but those who denied this power from above. Last week, we saw how Paul encouraged Timothy to be a worker approved by God. As I explained this before, this is a letter from Apostle Paul to Timothy. He was a mentor, he was a teacher, he was a father figure to Timothy who are working for the church in Ephesus. And many know and claim that this letter might be the last letter Paul wrote before he was persecuted by the Roman government. And this is like a last words to his beloved disciple. And there's such a intensity and urgency in his writings as well. And today we see his warning of false teachers. And if you look at verse 1, it says, "But understand this, that in the last days there will come times of difficulty." The last days here, the word eschaton, eschatosmera, is the period between the first coming of Jesus and the second coming of Jesus. So Jesus has come 2,000 years ago and he is yet to return. So we are living in these last days. We are in last days. And he explains that there's a times of difficulty. This is time of difficulty for those who are in Christ or even without Christ. We have struggles and problems and troubles in this world, but he's especially speaking to Christians and Timothy that there will be struggles and persecution because you follow Christ. But it's not just physical stress, but also your psychological, emotional attacks and stress as well. But here he's emphasizing this difficulty comes from false teachers who go against God and the gospel. And he summarizes the very character of these people in verse 5. He says, they have the appearance of godliness, but denying its power. So they show themselves up in their appearance. They look like they have godliness, but they don't really have the power of godliness. And then he explains what are these characters are from verses 3 to 5. And I want to think about when we think about this, how they have this appearance of godliness, but not having really its power. We want to think about whether we have similar characters like them, and how we could look for a true power from God and power of godliness from Him. So let's look at verse 2. So first character of this false teacher is that they will be lovers of self. So these people are narcissistic. They're self-centered. They love themselves more than God. I often say that the biggest religion of the world is called selfism. Selfism is the biggest religion of the world. People love themselves more than anything else. Even if you claim to be a part of certain religion, when you look into their hearts, and you will see that people are trying to live for themselves and serving themselves. And that's what happened to Adam and Eve at the beginning of Genesis. that they disobeyed God's commandment not to eat of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. They ate the fruit because they loved themselves more than God. And then as we read from a Heidelberg Catechism today, what is the greatest commandment? The greatest commandment is to love God, and the second commandment is to love others. But there's not the third commandment of loving yourself. It says, love your neighbors as yourself, because God already knows that we ourselves love ourselves already. And Bible teaches that Jesus calls us to deny ourselves even. Deny ourselves and take up our cross. And secular psychology, secular psychiatry is based on the premise that you have to love yourself more. You gotta have a higher self-esteem to be healed. But Bible actually speaks of opposite. It's not that you love yourself more to get healed, but Bible speaks that you have to love God more to get true healing. It's not, when it says deny oneself, it's not really about, it doesn't mean self-hatred. It's neither self-love nor self-hatred. It's not about self-centeredness, but about God-centeredness. So whether you hate yourself or love yourself, it's not about yourself. It's not about being self-centered. It's about being God-centered. The power of godliness is about loving Jesus more than yourself. Do you love Jesus more than yourself? And there's a power in it when you deny yourself and follow Jesus and love Him more. And these false teachers, the second characteristic comes from being a lovers of money. Paul already talked to Timothy about this in his first letter, that for the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. It is through this craving that some have wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves with many pangs. It says he warned those Christians, they left church because they loved money. They were lovers of money. They loved money more than God. Money itself is not an evil. Love of money is root of all evil. In the end times, people will love money more than God. So power of godliness comes not being rich in money, but being rich in God. And Jesus even asked the question to his disciples, do you love money more than God? You cannot serve both money and God at the same time. And we often choose money more than choosing God. What are you choosing between Jesus and money? Do you choose Jesus or do you choose money? The third characteristic says here, they are being arrogant. Being arrogant is once again about being self-centered and looking down on others and think of oneself highly than other people and being boastful of how much they have and showing off of their power. That is being arrogant. So where's the power of godliness comes from? The power of godliness is humility. More humble you are, more power of Christ and His godliness. Jesus Himself exemplified the humility in every way, coming down on earth in human flesh. That in itself is humility. And Him serving us, dying on the cross, is the pinnacle of humility He showed to us. This world is filled with people who are trying to show off their power through money, power through strength, and power through their knowledge. And when you look at them, what do you think? Do you get jealous? It's hard not to be jealous, right? I was walking down the street even a couple days ago, and I was looking at this car. I think it was a Lamborghini or something. I was like amazed of how good the car was. And then, if you walk down the street in the city even, and if you look at certain buildings, and then you're amazed of how big the buildings are. And then you wonder who the owners are, right? And and then when you sit down in a restaurant and then looking at people having like really nice meals, I want what they're having. And then, it's not, the power of godliness is just not about being jealous of what other people have, even being arrogant of what you have. And it comes with humility, and it comes not comparing yourself to any other people, but really truly being know how humble Jesus was and following his footsteps. And the false teachers were abusive. Being abusive means that they were abusing God's name. They're rejecting God's authority, and they spoke violently against God, and then they spoke violently against others and abusing others in their relationships, cursing verbally, abusing others with verbal words or even physically as well. And mainly they're filled with complaints, expressing hatred, explaining complaints. And there's so much darkness in their expressions, both in their language and also in their actions as well. In the gospel of Jesus Christ, it brings light to darkness and heals this darkness. So it drives away our hatred, it drives away our complaints, it drives away our jealousy. It brings not only humility, but also healing to our complaints. And then it changes our language. We're no longer speaking violence. We're no longer speaking hatred. The power of godliness is not just being nice to other people, but also protecting others from abuse. And here we see another characteristics called disobedient to their parents. And this is interesting, right? Why would they disobedient to the parents? And this is not just to parents, but unreasonable rebellion against God-given authority. Fifth commandment out of 10th commandment is honor your parents. And that is what it means to obey God-given authority, because that is the first God-given authority in line when we're born into this world. I was listening to this interview given to a lady who escaped from North Korea. Her name is Yeonmi Park, and she was speaking of, as she is now being active in America. And she was getting interviewed by many people, and now I was listening to her interview, and she speaks of a time when she was living in North Korea, and what they were doing in classrooms in schools, the teachers teaching the students that every school classrooms have pictures of the Kim family, the dictators, and they're teaching the kids. Kim Jong-un is your father, your true parents. If your parents speak against the Kim family, you have to report to me, to the teacher, that they should be penalized because of their rebellion against the Kim family. So what they're doing, they're teaching, brainwashing kids to deny the God-given authority of the parents. They're separating the kids from their parents in their relationship and giving them false parents on top of them. And when Yeonmi speaks of this tendency happening in North Korea, she speaks of same thing happening in America. She says that in America, if the parents does not affirm the feeling of the kids, so if the kids feels that even though they are boys, if they feel like they're girls, if the parents doesn't affirm their different gender tendency, the teachers telling the kids to report to the teachers so they could report to the authority as well. And she finds it amazed of similar things happening both in North Korea and in America. This disobedience may not be close to us, but it's happening around the world. That in the end times, one of the most known characteristic is actually going against God-given authority, especially to the parents. And then we're not blindly obeying our parents because, even if they say something against God, we're obeying the parents because they want to honor God and they want to obey Christ. And so we're obeying the parents under Christ. And here we see how they're ungrateful. And ungrateful means that they're not thanking God. They know how to thank God and even thank the others as well. The Bible teaches us give thanks to God in all circumstances. That is the will of God. Are you being grateful? There's a power of being grateful. God has given you a lot without you realizing. God has shown grace to your lives, and we gotta be thankful. And those people who are grateful and expressing their gratitude to not only to God but to others, there's a power in there through gratitude. I want to thank all of you for coming to church to worship God. I'm extremely grateful for your presence. I'm really grateful. I enjoy seeing you coming to church and worshiping God. I thank God, and I want to see more people coming to church and worshiping God. I'm grateful for all your services, all your contributions, all your encouragement. I'm grateful for all people who are serving in praises and behind the scenes. Like serving for morning tea. I'm grateful for people who are serving for greeting people in front of the door. I thank God for you. I'm really grateful for you. And there's a power in our gratitude and power in being grateful, being thankful to God and to each other. Here they are unholy. These are people who are unholy. The purpose of our salvation is holiness. God has saved you through faith in Jesus Christ, that He wants you to be holy like Him. And He has called us to be blameless and holy. And these people are unholy. It means that they are impure in their hearts, impure in their actions, impure in their speeches. They don't fear God, and they continue to live a life of sins. In verse 3, they say they're heartless people. They are loveless. They are dry. And even filled with hatred. And there's a certain power of godliness when you love others. But in the end times, Jesus speaks that love of many will grow cold. And people, they don't look to each other even. When you go out walking on the streets, when you see people, greet them, say hello to them. And some people don't look at you, and they may look at you strangely. Why does this person say hello to me, right? But people who knows how to, if someone says hello to you and then you say hello back, that is the people with with love, right? And I want Christians to be more greeting people, filled with love and loving others as well. There's a power in there. And these false teachers are unappeasable. They're unforgiving, and also they are not content of what they have. Their hearts are filled with anger, and they are slanderous. They love gossiping, and they love talk bad about other people. And here we see they are without self-control. They are lazy, they are greedy, they are filled with lust. And when you look at these characters and look into our hearts, there's a certain power in self-control. And we lose our control over technology. How many hours do you look at your phones or your internet or computers? I know of many people spending hours playing games, and even look at the devices all night, and there's no control there. And self-control, there's a power in godliness. Power comes from discipline and self-control. And that we do that because Jesus has shown us discipline, our self-control. Do you plan your day? Do you plan your week? Is there a control in your cleaning your rooms? And, setting aside for time for others? There's a certain beauty and power in self-control. And these false teachers are brutal to others and not loving good. And verse 4, they're treacherous, they're reckless, they're swollen with conceit, and they are lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God. In end times, people are living for pleasures. They're not living for God. And I pray that as a Christians, we are not seeking pleasure. We are seeking God. There's a power in there. I'm not saying that you shouldn't enjoy the things of the world. You could enjoy that God-given gift. They could, enjoy certain things in life, whether it's food or drinks or movies or things, music. There's good things in the world. You could enjoy art. But we are not pleasure seekers. We are God seekers. We are God-honoring people. And again, verse 5 summarizes that having appearance of godliness, but denying its power. These false teachers with these characters, they look like, wow, that person have such appearance that is so attractive, so grandeur. It's like a famous people. But they deny the power of godliness. They deny the relationship with God through Jesus Christ. Church can be filled with these people too. Church, we could show off others that, I am a follower of Christ, that I live such a good life. Clean life. But when I'm alone, when no one's watching me, I could commit so many sins before God that I deny the power of godliness. What about you? Do you just show the appearance of godliness and denying its power? Or are you seeking the true power of godliness from God? And Paul encourages Timothy to avoid such people. Avoid them. It doesn't mean that don't pray for them and don't help them. It doesn't mean that don't share gospel with them. It means that avoid the sinful ways that they practice. Avoid gossiping. Avoid, looking at these pleasure-seeking things on internet or devices. Avoid how they look to be arrogant and show off what they have. So when he says avoid such people, avoid their way of life and seek the way of godliness and Jesus. And because it's all about what kind of friends you have. Say for example, if your friends love enjoying recreational drugs, and then you want to help them not to do it, but you end up doing them together with them. That's such influence you get from your friends. And I'm not against drinking, but your friends love drinking to the point that they knock themselves out, right? And then it's hard not to, go with them and drink with them, right? So avoiding, it doesn't mean that you not loving them, not sharing gospel with them, but not committing sins with them. And this false teachers' ministry is shown in verse 6. For among them there are those who creep into households and capture weak women, burdened with sins and led astray by various passions. And that back in the days, these in the Greek culture, often the rich people invited teachers into their house and get them to teach them personally, and they have a private lessons. And these false teachers, acting like they know a lot, they get invited into these homes. And then they lure and then they tempt these women to fall into sexual sins with them. These are not just sexual sins, but also habitual sins too. And then also they lure them into false teachings and misplacing their faith in the hands of false teaching. In verse 7, always learning, never able to arrive at a knowledge of the truth. So these people are craving more knowledge, but it's not the right knowledge, but a false knowledge. And here, knowledge of truth is about the gospel of Jesus Christ, the true knowledge from the Bible. But they were seeking to devour all sorts of knowledge about the world, but not truly arriving to the gospel of Jesus Christ, but always seeking to crave onto all the other false teachings of the world, all other philosophies and sciences. And verse 8, just as Jannes and Jambres opposed Moses, so these men also opposed the truth. And these two names are not mentioned in Old Testament, but these names are mentioned in Jewish literature. And clearly Paul knew about these names through those what they call Jewish Targums. These two names, those who opposed Moses in the court of Pharaoh, and when Moses turned the rods into snake. These two names, they are sorcerers. They practice witchcraft. These sorcerers, they knew how to turn the rod into snakes as well, but they turned themselves into snakes before God. And so Paul is mentioning these names. These false teachers are like these sorcerers before Moses. They are men who opposes the truth of the Jesus Christ, and they corrupt people's mind and disqualify people regarding the faith. And verse 9, but they will not get very far, for their folly will be plain to all, as was that of those to men. And that, lies and deceptions and false teachings end up exposed, and how they, as they deny the power of godliness, they eventually show their foolishness before God. We are constantly getting false information and false teachings through media, through social media, and through internet these days. And just like these false teachers creep into people's houses, these creep into people's houses through TVs and computers and mobile devices these days. And people are deceived. People are fallen into temptation, not sleeping with the false teachers, but watching these things they're committing through media. No, I pray that all of us be aware of these false teachings in our generation, and we seek the power of godliness from God, that only the truth of Jesus Christ can save us and make us renewed. Brothers and sisters, these false teachings will eventually show up, and these mainly show up by the fruit of their lives. And just like that, if your faith is authentic faith, it will show in your life as a fruit. The way you live your life is through your faith in Jesus Christ. If our faith is fake, if our faith is fake, that will show as a fruit of our life as well. If you live in sinful ways, if you're not repenting, if you're not cutting off the ways you continue to sin before God, that shows that your faith might not be authentic faith. If you truly follow Jesus, you continue to pursue the power of godliness, power of the truth. Bless you that you will continue to live the life of Jesus Christ. Let's pray together.